listening from home, I forgot to turn the recorder on, and here we are. So now, we were here talking about Leonardo's smoky light, sfumato. So when we get into the shadows, what the smoky light does is it obscures the distinctions between parts, right? So if you look back here, the spinal bush you see in front of, you'll notice that you sort of stop seeing the spines, right? They can sort of meld into the background because the smoke does that. And if you ever, like on a foggy day, right, you can see things up close pretty well, but as they get back into the fog, they sort of meld into each other. And if you look at the landscape back here, right, the trees on this hill, as you come down here, it's impossible to tell really what's going on that hill and where the tree ends and the hill starts. Or where the edge of that land ends and the reflection in the water starts. Right? It's kind of mysterious. And Leonardo quite likes this. Because Leonardo, like a lot of our Italian painters, was a Neoplatonist. We talked about Neoplatonic philosophy. Neoplatonists, the new followers of Plato. We talked before about how Neoplatonists saw a connection between Venus and Mary, the Virgin Mary, right? They had other parts of Neoplatonic philosophy. One of the things they felt really firmly believed was that truth, perfection, only exists inside the human mind. And that once it takes physical form, rather than mental thought patterns, once it takes physical form, it becomes imperfect. Because the physical world is faulted. And the only place that really great things happen is inside your mind. Okay? Now, Leonardo follows this idea. And for him, your mind has to complete it. You can't physically see the separation between the different parts. But your mind starts to figure out that it's there, it gives you clues, it gives you signs of it. But it's finished inside your head. Right? That makes it very much a sort of Neoplatonic way of thinking about the world. And when we look at Leonardo, when we look at Michelangelo, who's really strong Neoplatonist, what we find is that both of them love this idea of works that are really finished. Because when you look at them, then your mind sees it. So there's one way in which he's doing that. One way in which he's letting your mind see it is by obscuring things in this smoky light, where shadows don't reveal things, they hide them from us. Right? It is indeed. I'm trying to remember if I look on the back of this. I think I do show you the back of it, right? But yes, it was. And this is common for a lot of portraits to be two-sided. Simply because we hang things on the wall, but oftentimes they didn't, right? But it does bring up a question of whether or not it was meant to be hinged over something else, so that when you closed it, you saw it was on the outside. And we'll look at the back, because it's an important part of how we know what's going on in this picture. Right? You remember from the museum, you have to walk around the back of it, right? Yeah. Let's go here. So let's see what else we got here. As we look in the back, we can see again with this sort of darkened sfumato lighting, which gets stronger in his later pictures, right? Here's one of his early works. He's already doing it, where this plant in the background sort of just begins to fade in the darkness and gradually emerge, maybe fade back in, and the sense as you're looking at it that it's in flux, right? That you can't understand it all just like that. He doesn't clarify it. He just suggests. And this is part of the reason I think that Leonardo holds this grip on our imagination, you know? See, this is when people think about artists, at least the most genius artist ever was Leonardo. But the other thing I want to point to is like these wonderful rivulets of hair. Look how well he's defined how her hair curls, right? But then eventually those curls just sort of begin to disappear into the sort of smokiness of the light here in there. She has this smokiness everywhere. The plant that's directly behind her head is a juniper plant. It's a spiky sort of rosemary family. It's got berries on it that now these days are used to flavor gin, right? Which the word for gin, the original word for gin comes from juniper as well. But in Italian, juniper is Ginevra.
her name, right? So her name is Juniper of Benchi, right? And he accentuates her name by giving her this juniper plant, almost like a halo around her head, right? And as you can see in the shadows, her head sort of melds into that plant, right? Fades into it, or it fades out around her as well. Now, as you mentioned, it's painted on both sides. And we can see some of the damage from where it was cut at the bottom here. And it has not only in the center another juniper branch, right, a single frond of juniper up the middle, this marbleized background, but we have with that a laurel branch on the left, tied with that thin ribbon to a palm branch on the right. This is, in fact, the coat of arms of a particular man, a diplomat from Venice, who seems to have paid for the picture as a gift to Ginevra da Benci when she got married. She was married right around the same time. And they were close friends, and he paid for Leonardo to paint this to give it to her on the event of her wedding. And so his coat of arms is the entwined laurel and palm branch around a symbol for her. And an inscription at the bottom, Virtutum forma decorit. Beauty adorns virtue. Right? The virtuous are beautiful. Right? Beauty adorns virtue. And that motto is not his motto by any means. It's meant to refer to her. She was believed to be the most beautiful woman in Florence, or one of the most beautiful women in Florence. Standards of beauty change, right? A little moon face, not my personal taste, but there you are. Why is she so beautiful? Because she's virtuous, right? Virtue adorns beauty. So this is one of Leonardo's earliest works, and one of the few that exist in the Western Hemisphere, at least outside of Europe, right? There are very few of them to come by. And part of the reason there's so few Leonardos is, like I said, he didn't like to finish things, right? A lot of his stuff is left unfinished, right? So, we think this was probably commissioned for her wedding by this diplomat from Venice who was friends with her and given to her and her husband as a wedding gift, Alana. Okay. His name was Bembo, Pietro Bembo. But I didn't have that in my notes to tell you, right? I wasn't going to quiz you on his name. He came from a very prominent family in Venice. In fact, his grandson became a cardinal, and there's a portrait in the National Gallery of the grandson by the Venetian artist Titian. But we have other paintings in the National Gallery that seem also to have come from his collection. He was a big art collector. And that's the reason we know the date on it is it's based on her wedding date, and on the dates that we can actually place Pietro Bembo in Florence, right? Because we need him to be there in order to have this all make sense, right? So that gives us the circa date that we're looking at here, right? Now, if we look at later works by Leonardo da Vinci, we have even more sfumato. This is in the Louvre. If you ever go to the Louvre, this is hanging kind of in the same room as the Mona Lisa. And everybody's over there looking at that. You should go over and look at this. It's a better picture anyway. Okay, it's bigger, but it's also, I think, a much more interesting picture. The Madonna or the Virgin of the Rocks. And here we can see again Leonardo's ongoing use of sfumato, especially behind the Virgin's head as we look out to the landscape. We saw some of that smokiness in the lower right corner of Ginevra da Benci, but look behind her, it's almost as if there's fog rolling in. Right? I mean, the things just disappear eventually into the deep background. But more than that, if we look into the shadows, right, you can't see anything in the shadows because of that sfumato lighting. It obscures the distinctions between the different parts of the picture. Did you ever see the movie Alien, the very first one, right, with Sigourney Weaver? The guy that made that, Ridley Scott, the director, actually had a little case in front of the camera, a thin pair of glass panels with smoke in it. And he filmed the entire thing through something. Whenever you see the aliens coming out of the dark and you can't see it all because of the light, he's doing, it even says, like Leonardo's Sfumato lighting, right? He wanted to have that same effect because back in here, you can't see what's coming. This could be the alien right there, coming out with its metal teeth and its acid blood to get you out of the darkness here, right? He hides things, Leonardo does, in the background. So if you look at the landscape, I got some good details here. Behind it, we can see that with the Sfumato lighting, really he hides as much as he shows. And that's typical for his works. Everywhere we look, he's hiding things. Things come out of the shadows, come out of the fog, and then they fall back into the fog. This wonderful angel on the right. And you can see maybe just barely the wing of the angel almost disappears, right? So here's the angel's wing here in the back. And all is gone, in this Sfumato light. And more than that, look at again how the curls on the front of the page are picked up. And they are painted almost like John and I would. Every single hair having highlights and shadows, right? And shining. And then as it comes down in the shadow, it just disappears. To cheek out again, here and there. Right? That is mystery that he includes in all of his work. And we look at the prep drawing that he did. This is a beautiful preparatory drawing for that angel. Right? Again, a piece of prepared paper that he's dyed. Come back in with, he's drawing with silver. A whole piece of silver that touches the paper, right? And leaves the marks. And then he's doing the highlights on that. But you notice that what happens here is he's got a shading for this part of the tree. So it seems to come out of the back of it. But then, where's the back of the head? It just disappears into the paper, right? He even seems to have some of that mystery of revelation in the drawings for these paintings, as much as in the finished works as well. Again, I've already mentioned Neoplatonism and how this seems to be very much keyed into Neoplatonic thinking, which says that perfection only exists inside your mind. It doesn't exist in the physical world. And so Leonardo has figured out a way to make a physical painting that engages your mind. It doesn't sell everything out for you. You have to figure it out and put it together inside your head, where it can still be perfect. Another thing that's quite mysterious about this is what's going on here. So you'll notice that Leonardo doesn't give these figures. It's the Virgin Mary. So one of these kids has got to be Jesus, right? And we've got two kids there. Which one is Jesus? And even with the angel, the supernatural part of the angel's wing, it almost looks like it's part of the rocks behind the angel. It's just gone, right? He really downplays any of the sort of holy parts of this, any of the supernatural parts of this. He kind of gets rid of. So if we look at this, which one's which? Who's Jesus here? Which of these two kids is Jesus? And who's the other one? We've seen times when Jesus appears twice, right? Back in this Lucio mission, he started off with, very early in life, twice. This is definitely not Christ twice, but they're engaged in each other, right? They're gesturing towards. Which of these two kids is Jesus? One under the angel. Why do you stand there? Excellent. That's a really subtle clue, but it's that hand gesture, right? And a lot of times when we see Jesus looking at us, what we do with that, right? The Boy Scout or something, right? Although it's what the priest does, and he does. I think you might have, right? Another way we can tell is that the other figure is probably John the Baptist, Christ's older cousin, right, is praying to him, which wouldn't happen if they were friends, right? If it was the other way around. At the same time, Leonardo kind of confuses this because doesn't the Virgin Mary Christ discover? But it's not her son. I didn't do that to you. And the one that is her son is one who comes left him by placing her hand over his head. Like this, maybe protected as well. Leonardo is consciously adding a level of mystery to the subject matter of peace. But he doesn't want it to be clear. He wants you to think about it. He wants you to put it together. But he wants you to look at the clues and come up with the solution, rather than simply spelling it out for you. There's the detail of that wing, right? Like I said, it obscures the wing. Now, there's a second version of this. This one's a little blue in comparison. This one is one thing. You know what that intrusive, right? You can make out more sharp edges of things, distinct boundaries between rocks and water. You can see what's happening back inside the shadows better, right? And the wings are more apparent. It gives them halos. It gives them other details that read cross that this picture has. It's something we often see that baby John the Baptist carrying. I think he had one in the Grunewald at some point, right? So this one has been made clearer. Maybe that was something we wanted to have. Totally in our own way. Tell me. Make it clearer. The lemon version is significantly easier to figure out. Right? Okay. It's 6:15, so we got to get out of here. Stay safe tonight.